major events rocked the Middle East less than 24 hours after Israel reportedly fired the first shots in a military incident that prompted an immediate Russian response. The retaliatory strike resulted in the destruction of Israel's entire Iron Dome air defense system in 1 month, according to reports from various international security sources monitoring the escalation of the conflict in real time. This incident immediately drew global attention because it was the first time the Iron Dome system, which for years had been claimed as the backbone of Israel's air defense, was reported to be completely disabled and inoperable throughout its operational area. The simultaneous precision strikes targeted radar centers, fire control facilities, and interceptor launchers spread across various strategic points. Amid the situation, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made an unusual public appearance. In an emergency press conference, Netanyahu appeared emotional and expressed regret for his government's previous provocative actions. He acknowledged that Israel's military decision had triggered a major reaction that was beyond what was initially anticipated. Military sources said that Russia launched the retaliatory strike using a combination of medium-range precision missiles, electronic warfare systems, and coordinated cyber attacks targeting the Iron Dome command and control network. As a result, the system failed to detect, track, and intercept air threats in a timely manner. This damage directly impacted Israel's national security. Several major cities were reportedly placed on full alert, while civil aviation operations were temporarily suspended. The Israeli government also issued an emergency order to all defense units to conduct a comprehensive evaluation of the remaining air defense systems. International military observers considered this incident a serious turning point in the region's military power dynamics. Iron Dome has long been considered a symbol of Israel's superior defense technology. However, its overnight destruction raises major questions about Israel's preparedness for a large-scale conflict with a global power. To date, there has been no official statement from Russia regarding the details of the operation. However, diplomatic sources stated that the attack was claimed to be a direct response to Israeli military actions deemed an open provocation and a serious violation of regional stability. The incident which triggered this escalation began with the Israeli military's decision to open fire on targets it claimed posed a direct threat to its national interests. According to regional security reports, the initial shots were fired in a limited operation, initially described as preventive and controlled. However, this move quickly triggered a chain reaction that expanded far beyond the Israeli government's initial scenario. Intelligence sources monitoring military movements in the region stated that Israel's initial strike was carried out without prior diplomatic coordination with major powers with direct interests in the region, including Russia. This decision was considered a serious strategic miscalculation given that Russia's involvement in various military operations and defense systems in the region was already widely known. Within hours of the first shots being fired, Russia reportedly raised its military readiness status. Radar activity, missile unit movements, and a significant increase in Russian military communications traffic were detected. Analysts viewed this phase as a brief evaluation period before Moscow decided on its response. The Israeli government, on the other hand, was said to have relied too heavily on the assumption that the conflict could be contained at the regional level and would not trigger direct intervention by major powers. This assumption was reinforced by high confidence in the capabilities of Iron Dome, the primary defense system which had long been considered capable of deterring any retaliatory attack. However, internal reports leaked to international media indicate that some Israeli defense officials had actually warned of the significant risks if Russia decided to intervene directly. These warnings were reportedly not a primary consideration in political decision-making at the highest level. When Russia finally launched a retaliatory strike, it was not conducted in an open and phased manner, but rather in a series of coordinated attacks that directly targeted the foundations of Israel's air defenses, Basamanishis. This strategy demonstrates that Russia's response was planned with great precision, exploiting gaps in the Iron Dome defense system. Military observers believe Israel failed to read Russia's early warning signals, Increased military activity, strong statements from Russian officials, and Moscow's diplomatic maneuvering prior to the retaliatory strike were considered overlooked indicators. This failure exacerbated the fallout for Israel. The immediate consequences of this miscalculation were not only military, but also political. Domestic pressure on the Netanyahu government increased sharply after the public learned that Israel's initial move had paved the way for the destruction of its long-vaunted national defense system. The Russian counterattack began at night and lasted a relatively short time, yet its impact was nationwide. According to military monitoring and circulating security reports, the operation was coordinated, measured, and targeted the most vital elements of Israel's Iron Dome air defense system. There were no random attacks. Each target was selected to ensure the system would be rendered inoperable in the near future. The initial phase of the operation focused on weakening its detection capabilities. Several key Iron Dome radar centers were reportedly severely disrupted by a combination of electronic warfare and precision missile attacks. As a result, Israel's early warning network lost its ability to accurately monitor the movement of air threats. Under these conditions, Iron Dome was virtually blind before it could even attempt an interception. The next step was targeting the Command and Control Center. The facility responsible for coordinating Iron Dome interceptor launches was the primary target. Technical reports stated that internal communication systems were paralyzed, data was desynchronized, and launch orders could not be executed properly. Some launchers reportedly remained physically intact, but were inoperable due to the loss of connection to the control center. International military sources stated that Russia was leveraging its long experience in modern systems-based warfare, not simply a battle of firepower. The attack aimed to structurally disable the system, rather than simply destroy the hardware. This approach resulted in Iron Dome not only being damaged, but also losing its integrity as a unified defense system. In less than a night, almost the entire Iron Dome network across Israel was reportedly inactive. Emergency recovery efforts by the Israeli military yielded no significant results. Some defense technicians acknowledged that the damage was far more complex than could be repaired in a matter of days or weeks. This situation sparked limited panic within the government. Emergency meetings were held throughout the night, while reports of damage continued to pour in from various regions. Israel's reliance on Iron Dome as its primary defense layer made the loss of the system a major strategic blow. Military observers believe the Russian operation sent a clear message that conflicts with global powers will not follow the pattern of typical regional confrontations. Iron Dome, which has been effective against rockets and limited-scale attacks, is not designed to withstand a coordinated attack from a country with advanced military capabilities. By early morning, the Israeli military had officially acknowledged that the Iron Dome system had suffered significant disruption. However, multiple independent sources stated that this term does not fully describe the conditions on the ground, where the defense system was practically unusable. The complete destruction of the Iron Dome system immediately had serious repercussions for Israel's national security. Without its primary air defense system, the Israeli government declared a state of heightened alert across much of the country. Military activity was increased, vital facilities were heavily guarded, and parts of civilian airspace were temporarily closed as a precaution. The Israeli military reportedly had to shift its defense focus to a backup system with much more limited capacity. However, security officials acknowledged that the alternative system was not designed to fully replace Iron Dome. This created a significant defense gap and increased the risk to strategic infrastructure and population centers. Domestically, public reaction was swift, with national and international media highlighting the unprecedented defense failure. Various parties questioned years of claims about the reliability of IR and the political decisions that brought Israel into direct confrontation with Russia. Political pressure on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu increased sharply. Opposition parties demanded a transparent explanation of the decision-making process that led to this escalation. Some members of parliament even called for the establishment of an independent commission of investigation to examine the political and military responsibility behind the collapse of the national defense system. In a widely broadcast public statement, Netanyahu struck a markedly different tone than usual. He acknowledged that his government's decisions had had major consequences for Israel's security. At the time, Netanyahu appeared to restrain his emotions and expressed regret for the provocative steps